Carlene, good morning.
Morning, Alex. How are you?
I'm fantastic. You're just getting up and moving over on the West Coast.
Yeah,
Carlene, for everybody out there, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to over the last couple of years with your business? And then I always like to go back to the beginning and hear kind of the backstory of how you got into this. So if you don't mind, take the
yeah, sure
floor.
thing. Hi, guys. I'm Carlene. I live in Arizona with my husband and our 18-year-old son, who is starting at ASU in the fall, which is pretty exciting. We moved out here from Washington State, where both Nick and I were born and raised. So that was a pretty big move and a big shift. Cooper was a sophomore in high school when we moved out here, so it was a pretty big deal for him too. We moved for the sunshine and we moved onto a golf course. Both my husband and son are huge golfers, so that was a part of the draw to get down to Arizona.
And from what I hear, you're quite a golfer yourself.
Well, I can drive the ball really good and really far, so everybody likes to have me on their scramble, and then they take it from there
Well,
and get it in the hole.
yeah.
But yeah, that driver is just my favorite club. I love just getting right up on the tee box and just smashing it. It's kind of crazy. But putting, I could care less about, and those mid clubs, I could care less about. But yeah, so as a family, we golf, and we just love the sunshine, love being outside. I started my brokerage company about 4 years ago. So I help support brands trying to sell into Costco. So some of my clients that you guys might recognize are Chomps Meat Sticks. They're going to be several $100 million in Costco this year. IQ Bar, pretty crazy. IQ Bar, Love Corn. We have a new product that just launched called Crocodile Cloth. We manage Sprinkles Bakery. So Sprinkles Bakery is now in the CPG world with a chocolate product. So we have that in Costco as well. Yeah, and I just love it. My clients are amazing. I love my company. I love my job. I love everything about it.
Okay, so give me some definitions, right? So you say you're a broker. I've heard that word before. But maybe just kind of like for those out there listening, like what does that mean? What kind of is the function of a broker in this sort of retail centric world?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. Brokers are generally just bringing a product to a buyer. They're helping product based companies get in front of the right buyer with the right offer and managing through that whole process, right? Like, what are we going to be selling? What's the pack size? What's the sell unit? How does it look on the pallet? What kind of details do we want to include in our offer, like marketing or exit strategies or off invoice spoilage? So all of those little details, we help the brands get prepared, and then we shepherd that conversation with the buyer to actually get the item approved in the warehouse.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. What I've come to find out is that you walk into a grocery store and you see all this stuff that's sitting on the shelf, and then once you start to dive into like how did that arrive here? Why this brand? Why not this brand? How did they arrive at this pricing strategy? Why does this thing have this, end cap like display? It all becomes really fascinating. There's this crazy underworld below all that that helps to get a
It's
product to the shelf.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild when you think about all the details. And really, using a broker helps you manage your margin because you're not going to, or hopefully, if you use the right broker, they're going to help you with all of that detail, like your supply chain, so you don't run into issues where you're eroding your margin because you didn't ship right or if it was refused. Or if it doesn't sell well, that you might be on the hook for exit strategy funding. So really, our fees save you money. So you're either going to like make mistakes along the way, or you hire a broker to help you manage through that. A lot of broker models are interesting because they want to put up a wall between the brand, and the buyer,
Hmm.
right? Like my relationship, which I'm getting paid for, is the buyer relationship, right?
Right. So you
But
have to go through me or else this conversation doesn't occur. It's like, classic like real estate agent type thing. Like, don't cut me out of the deal sort of thing.
Totally. And it gets very weird and kind of a little bit funny. Our model at Rebel is really the exact opposite. We put all of our clients in front of the buyers. We want them to have in direct conversations with the brands because the buyers want to get to know the founders. They want to understand, that positioning and that story and get to see these amazing founders. We are there to just shepherd that program so that they don't make mistakes. And we are very confident in the value that we add, that our buyer relationship isn't the only thing we bring to the table. We bring all of this other stuff to the table, which is truly going to help you manage your margin and help grow the business at Costco.
Mm. So really your job is twofold. One, it's coaching, and the other is sort of like, pairing people together that have a good mutual fit. I hate to use
Yep.
the relationship of like a real estate agent again, but it's like I have a buyer, you have a seller, we both want the same thing, let's pull them together. But then you're kind of doing the coaching in between to say like, hey, in order to have success, because this is going to be a long-term transaction, not a one and done. That's why your real estate agent, doesn't talk to you after, you buy or sell the house. You need to continue to build that relationship. And I know that's one thing that Costco, you've told me, is really, really good at.
Yep. And Costco is interesting too because it's a long game. Costco, you hitch your wagon to that retailer, third largest US retailer, just an amazing company. You hitch your wagon to that company and it grows and it grows big and it grows fast. And it doesn't just grow your Costco business, it grows rest of market as well. Household penetration is about getting eyeballs on your brand. And Costco and their model around memberships, they have feet coming through those doors. And Chomps is a really great example of that in terms of, we got into Costco and their household pen grew outside of that. At a very, very interesting and exciting rate. So, it affected Walmart and Sprouts and Whole Foods and all the other channels in which Chomp sells. I get a lot of that from my clients. Like, oh my gosh, I'm giving Costco such a great value. My price sloping, is off rest of market. But really, we don't see that happening. We don't see any sort of, impact to rest of market sales when you are at Costco.
Yeah, I'm just doing some Googling right now about Costco. 250 billion in 2024, which made them, around the 19th, 20th largest company in the United States. That's all markets, including healthcare and everything like that. And as you said, the third largest retailer in the United States behind Walmart and Amazon. Is that right?
It flops, yes. Actually, why don't you Google that? Because I don't know what it is right now, or
Mm,
Chat GPT it.
Costco size compared to retailers.
Yeah, or top three retailers in the U.S. Let's try that.
Costco, there's a little bit about size. Yeah, revenue. Let's see revenue. Well, I know that Walmart is the number one in the United States amongst all revenue, which is still kind of shocking because, like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't ever shop at Walmart. I get it that the old Sam Walton model was like bringing this store to places that are underserved. I don't know if that's still really their model. Now it's like every town in the United States needs to have a Walmart, but uh, yeah, Walmart's retail sales were 3 times larger than Costco, which is crazy. That's in 2023. But yeah, it looks like they're quite a bit larger, Costco, that is, than Target. Target 105 billion, BJ's 20 billion. So wow, think about that. So 2.5 times the size of Target and almost 20x the size of BJ's. And it's funny because like I just got a Costco next to us like 4 or 5 years ago. You came and visited our Costco here in Dublin. But prior to that, like Costco wasn't really on my radar as like a destination for shopping. We have Kroger here in Columbus, which is a big, hometown presence. But the Costco shopper is like crazy loyal. Like they'll go to Costco for everything and all the crazy perks that come along with the membership. I mean, it's its own ecosystem out there.
Yeah, it's wild. So they're an average Costco member will shop at Costco 27 times per year, and their average trip is over $200.
Mm.
And they definitely skew female, highly educated, high household income. So I'm always looking at the demographics and how it shifts just slightly because it's very important for clients that I'm working with to understand who's shopping at Costco
Mm.
and how does their product fit, right? We want to have that perfect overlap of their consumer demographics with who the member is. Because sometimes it's just not the right fit.
And that was one of the things you told us about Chomps was that one reason why they're so successful in Costco was they started to target women with meat sticks and not like your Jack Links kind of thing that was like, oh yeah, these are guys that are like about to go fishing. It's like, no, that's not our customer.
Yeah, and it's just the absolute perfect perfect overlap of demographics between the member and Chomp's consumer.
Mm. Carlene, take me back. Like, when did you start to get involved in business? Is this something that you've had a passion for a long time? Is this something you're like, in college, I'm going to go into business and this is my life? Or did you kind of fall into this? Because that part of your story, I don't really know.
Funny, I didn't realize it at that time, but I've always been a hustler. I've always been scrappy. I've always figured out ways to get it done. And really, the name of my company is Rebel Solutions because I've always kind of just been a rebel. I've always just bucked the system, figured out a different way. I've been in sales my whole career,
Mm.
but I would be hired to like, okay, Carlene, go sell these glass jars. And I would be selling the liquid that went in the jars and the jars. And then and it was always my managers were always like, Carlene, what is this crazy idea you're coming with? I'm like, I know we can sell this.
Mm.
So I've always kind of been a disruptor. And that always wasn't, I mean, that wasn't always welcomed when I was younger.
Mm. I can
I
imagine a little Spitfire 20-year-old Carlene trying to coach her manager. No, we need to do it this way. They're like, please just do it by the book. Please, just for once.
I know. Yeah. So I had some really lovely managers, but they didn't know what to do with me. So they kind of just let me run the show. And when I was in college, I started a company called Carlene's Naturals.
Oh.
I'm 50 years old, which is crazy to say out loud. And so when I was early 20s, right, this was a long 30 years ago, there was no Burt's Bees. There was no like lip balms like there is now. And I started this little company called Carlene's Naturals. I made lip balm in my apartment, and I sold them at craft fairs and like little consignment shops in Ellensburg, Washington. And that was my first taste of it. I got a P&L together. My brother was my investor. He gave me $1,000. Yeah, and I loved it. I've always just loved the hustle. I love the POs. I still to this day get like super excited when I see a PO come in through my EDI portal.
So what became of Carlene's Naturals? Where did that go?
Gosh, well, I mean, I think my parents still have samples in their garage. That's probably 20 years old, 30 years old. I don't actually remember what quite happened to it. I think I probably graduated college and kind of got my first job and moved on from it. But I still have a business plan. I just came across it the other day. Business plan, the whole thing.
Mm. So once you graduate college, you've kind of done this business thing, and it sounds like you knew you would do something entrepreneurial. But I've seen other people like this. They're like, I want to do entrepreneurial, but I'm going to try to find a job that mirrors that. So where did you go at that point in time?
Yeah, I had a couple little silly receptionist jobs that I knew were like, this is not for me at all. Like, you had to be in your seat. You had to be there physically, which I didn't love at all. I like to do things fast. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I got this summer job once working for the Parks Department. My brother worked at the Parks Department, a full-time employee, and he got me this little summer internship job. And my job was to count the lights at the parks.
Okay.
Count the lights. So I had to drive around to every park and count the lights. So I got it in a spreadsheet. I had all of the things. I finished it within the first week of being on the job. And I go to the guy and I'm like, I'm done. Okay, what's next? And he's like, no, you have to make, that's your job. You have to go recount them then. You have to make that last the entire summer.
Oh.
And I was like, what? So I got this like really strange taste of like, I don't want to say a government job, but that was
bureaucracy.
The
Yeah. Wait, bureaucracy.
job. That had to last me, the entire summer. And I was like, this is crazy town. I can't do this. Like, I figured out a process. I got a spreadsheet together. I presented you with my findings. Like, I'm supposed to do something after this, right? But anyway, so that little summer job was a really great taste of like what I did not want, where I would not thrive.
Interesting. So at what point do you start to get involved in consumer packaged goods and CPG?
I worked at Starbucks headquarters.
I didn't know that.
And yes. Oh my God. It was the best job ever.
So
It was better than,
what year was that? Because they've gone through so many changes over like the last 20, 30 years. So I'm wondering if you were kind of as they're really springing up and forward.
yeah, it was my late 20s. It was like I went to a temp agency, and they got me a temp job as a contract worker. And then it turned into a full time role at Starbucks. I was a Starbucks partner, but it was managing retail merchandise. So I worked in the merchandise department. So when you go into a Starbucks, you see all the mugs, you see barista bears, and you see brewing equipment and all that. I worked on that team that sourced and developed and managed all of that product. And that particular department was very, very important to them because it set them apart from a McDonald's or a
Mm,
other quick serve restaurant. The kids or the young partners wanted to work there because the merchandise was so cool.
mm.
So it wasn't necessarily that that department was there to drive revenue, which it did, but it was really there to create this incredible space where one, the partners working in the stores loved it, and also, the folks coming through to buy their coffee were excited about the merchandise. So I learned all about that sourcing, testing, compliance, planning, POs. It was an incredible, incredible job.
And I'm sure that's at a time when Starbucks still had pretty remarkable scale. So I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to wrap their heads around when you talk about like, oh, I'm producing a product, and a brand like Starbucks or Costco, they go like, yeah, this is going to go in like 5,000 locations. And it's like, you need like whatever, 24 units behind that. And you start to go like, wow, this scale's like pretty incredible. That boggles my mind when I start to think about like grocery food, just like how much product goes through the grocery stores every single day when you spread it out across all these different stores and locations. It's crazy.
I also think back to that time, early 20s, I'm in meetings, running meetings with these huge manufacturers, right? I met with Stanley, which is owned by Pacific PMI. And I'm this young buyer, don't know what the heck I'm doing. And in charge of placing, $10 million POs,
Right.
like crazy town, right? That's how much trust Starbucks puts in their partners
Mm.
is, we trust you. You're going to figure it out. You're going to do the right thing. But now I'm on the other side of the desk and I'm working with these young buyers. I'm like, gosh, what do they need from me? How can I help them make really good decisions? Because they're probably feeling overwhelmed. They probably have too much on their plate. They're maybe not as confident as they need to be in that role. So I think about that a lot of, how do I just help them? How do I make their job easier? How do I make them look good? How do I present them with offers of items that are really well vetted and make it easy for that buyer to just say yes to me?
Mm. Carly, this is a question that I wanted to ask probably later in the podcast, but I think it's a good time to ask it now. What was it like being a woman in some of those meetings? Because your team, I've met almost all of them, a lot of females in your group and organization. I can tell that's something that's important to you. I mean, what was it like when you were young, kind of getting into the workforce and trying to like feel out how things work for a woman in a business field? And I don't know what your colleague, demographic was like at that point in time, but like you said, are you the 23-year-old girl leading a meeting of like eight, 50-year-old
And
guys? Yeah. What
yep,
was life like?
yep, it was the khaki crew, like the khaki pants, the button down, using all the big words to make me feel a little, or maybe they weren't doing that on purpose, but I was feeling a little intimidated, right? Um, but Starbucks was the perfect place to be a woman in
Mm,
business. It did not matter. Gender did not matter. There was tons of really strong female leadership there. So I felt, looking back now, I didn't realize it at the time, obviously, but very, very impactful in how I thought about myself. I had just exuded confidence because everyone else around me was a very strong, determined, responsible woman in that company.
yeah, and possibly depending on going to a different company where that culture wasn't there, maybe that kind of like sets you back for 5 or 10 years, where you're like, oh, it's just like I'm not ever going to be on the executive leadership team. Like that's just not something they do here at this company.
Yeah, if I wouldn't have started out at in that environment, like I didn't know any different, right? So of course that's how I'm going to be in the next, at the next company. Which my next role was also amazing company. Really great female leaders, great male leaders too. Really fun. I was in promotional products at a company called BDA,
Hmm.
working with huge brands. So I sold back to Starbucks. So that's how I was like managing programs, and BDA was my was my that was my vendor
Hmm.
when I was at Starbucks, and then I went over to BDA and I sold back to Starbucks.
So what kind of promotional products? Like cups, like stuff like that?
Yeah, so that merchandise that you see at the Starbucks, I would find manufacturers to then sell to Starbucks.
So are you like traveling the world finding manufacturers? Are you like going to Taiwan and China and Asia and like finding cup manufacturers? Because I think you know that I have a patent on a glass product, and it's like there's nobody in the United States that makes this product. So it's like you
Why aren't we selling that?
haven't brought it to market yet. I could definitely tell you about it. It's an all glass food storage system. So you
Let's see
you
it.
got your glass cup right there. One of the problems with any food storage system, Tupperware is what you would know it as, right? That's plastic. So the better situation is glass bottom, plastic top. But the best situation would be no plastic at all because microplastics leach into our food, especially when they're heated, right? So, like me, I eat like chicken and rice or beef and rice every day for lunch. But when I put that like scalding hot rice in the bowl and then you put the plastic top on it, it's still like cooking the heat there. So you can set it on your counter and that's okay, but then you're still mashing that plastic into the food. It's just not a perfect situation. So I actually got a patent for an all glass food storage container. Um, you know, I think you're an iPhone user, right? When you open that iPhone box, you're like trying to shake that thing out of the box and it just doesn't want to come. So my kind of patented design is like two kind of interlocking pieces of glass that are held together by just like friction, essentially friction and gravity. So hasn't came to market yet. It's like a side project, not the premise of this podcast. People on the podcast have heard me talk about it, but I know there's a
I can't,
market for it. There's 100% a market for it.
I can't wait to learn more. Can I be your exclusive Costco sales
You
rep
have it.
for it?
Signed, sealed, delivered. You got that. Yeah. So I don't know where we were on this, but merchandise, product and merchandise. Yeah. So were you like traveling the world trying to find these manufacturers or?
No, we had a whole import department. So at BDA, they had, they were doing promotional products. I was selling to Starbucks retail product. So I was kind of in this very unique, again, rebel, right? Like this very unique world where I was selling items that would be for sale. So it was like a profit center for Starbucks versus folks that were trying, my colleagues were trying to sell pens or pencils or
Giveaway. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so
Lose
it's like
money.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
cost,
Yeah.
right? So I think I had an easier time of it there because well, one, I had really great teammates who were helping me. We had a great creative department, we had a great sourcing team, we had really great compliance. So it made it really easy for me to, kind of kick off with our creative team and come up with super cool things that then could be
Yeah, I'm
manufactured.
just looking around my office trying to find,
Yeah,
promotional products, and I probably got like five sitting on my desk right here and right now. It's kind of funny. You don't think about like how big of a market that is.
huge. Yeah.
So where does the connection to Costco then start to come in? Is it you get linked up with them through some promotional campaign?
No, I just kind of ran my course at BDA. I was getting kind of bored of the same old. Starbucks was amazing to sell to, amazing to work at, amazing to sell to, but everything is so promotionally driven. It was like Christmas all the time, right? Like I'm always developing some level of Christmas, whether it's, kicking off a program or shipping Christmas. So I just wanted something different, and I got recruited into a packaging gig. So I started selling packaging and gift packs, and that was terrible.
Mm,
Was not for me. But again, they like hired me to sell packaging, and here I am sourcing candles to go put into this gift pack for Dial or Unilever, whatever it was. Um, I just, it was a great job. It was fun. I always learned something, but it wasn't really going to be my forever path.
mm-hmm.
And in that packaging role, I hooked up with a team that just sold packaging to Costco.
Okay.
So they would develop like, the corrugated trays or the banding that holds two of the cell units together. They would do assembly, right? Like, okay, well, I can give you this, but you have to match it up with the glasses and then put it in a case and then put it on a pallet and send it to Costco. So we would do kind of that assembly work and we would sell them the materials along the way. And I just got really, really great at the Costco supply chain. And I
Mm,
think, when we really start talking about Costco, the way to win at Costco is through their supply chain model. They work at the lowest OPEX percentage. I think it's at 7% OPEX because they always follow the same methodology. So they have a cross-dock depot system where inbound freight comes in the morning. It is collated on one side of the warehouse for each individual warehouse that it's supporting, and that freight goes out at the end of the day. So you can roller skate in those depots
Hmm.
at night.
Very different
And
warehouse than what most people probably think when you think like warehouse. It's like boxes come in, they sit somewhere, and then they get funneled back out. Yeah, I didn't even really know about cross docks until a couple of years ago.
it's such a cool operation. They can unload trailers, like a full trailer, in like 6 minutes. And they're so dialed with their supply chain. If you, as a supplier to Costco, can't manage that supply chain, you will not win. So I got really, really good understanding the supply chain. And then my clients kept asking me for more and more and more. Like, Carlene, help me with this buy doc. Hey, what is this OI thing that the buyer's asking me about? And I never knew the answer, but I figured it out. And then I tried to, I went into partnership to start a brokerage company with a couple people. We didn't have shared values on how we support clients. And I
Mm.
was like, I'm just going to go on my own.
Mm.
And that was about 5 years ago.
So you really didn't even necessarily start with your mind on CPG, your sort of brokerage. Like it just that just so happens I was reading Costco and it's like 150 billion of their 250 billion is in CPG and food. Because as I think most people think about Costco is food. I walk in, I get my food. Sure, I can buy tires there, and I'm sure a lot of people do buy tires there. But that's like one of the things that's like on the way in and out of the door, right? On my way to get my salmon and my produce and what.
Yeah, definitely. And we represent non-foods too. So we represent crocodile cloth, and we have Wet Fly, a fishing company. So we do apparel and also some footwear. So we cross, but food is really, and the consumables is really, rinse repeat, because you really want members to have that in their cart every time, all those 27 trips that they come.
Hmm.
They're not always going to buy the fly rod. They're not always going to buy their new flip flops.
Yeah.
But that food in the consumable space is really, having a balanced portfolio would have food and non-foods.
Mm. I would love it if you would maybe just describe how like the traditional grocery store tends to work. Like maybe just give me it goes from A to B to C versus Costco. Because I know Costco is quite a bit different. Of course, things come in a pallet, like you talked about there with the logistics. It's just so that like someone out there listening can kind of go, oh wow, huh, that is interesting and a little bit different.
Yeah, I'll start with Costco. So we were talking about that crosstalk, right? They bring in full pallets of product, and that full pallet. So, okay, here's a truck. It holds 60 pallets. It drops off at the depot 60 pallets. One pallet is then staged to be married up with other one pallets from brands, and then a full mixed truck goes out to the warehouse. And then the warehouse doesn't have any storage other than the racks, right?
Right. So when you're
So
in the store is the warehouse, right? Like that also never clicked with me that there's no like warehouse in the back of Costco. Like I always kind of just imagine like, when you go beyond that wall, that's where everything ugly is. Like, at your traditional grocery store, you're walking to the bathroom at, Kroger and then you're like, "Oh, there's the back. That's where like the stuff is. It's dark and dingy." That
they're
doesn't exist at
back.
Costco.
Which is amazing, right? Like, so when all of this is such great information, then I have to coach, new brands. Like, no, there is no storage. We're going to have a pallet, and we have to look at pallet density, is what I call it. Is this the amount of weeks it takes for them to move through a pallet?
Mm.
So this will blow your mind too. So Costco wants to sell through a pallet before they have to pay the supplier for that product. So if we have net 14-day terms or net 30, we have to sell through that pallet in 14 days
Mm.
so that Costco gets paid from their members before they pay us.
Makes
Us
that's like
in this year,
business lesson 101. If you can do that, then you'll stay in business, right?
right? No cost of capital. I love it. But grocery works quite a bit differently in that there's generally like distributors in the mix. So you would sell your product to a distributor, and the distributor then has warehouses strategically located to support retailers. So you might ship your full truck to this distributor. They then sit on it. That warehouse is where then they are pulling from that pallet to distribute a master case. or a 6 pack or whatever that looks like, because grocery, the velocities just aren't there like they are for Costco. So those distributors may have trucks going every day to the distribution center for the grocery stores, but the volume is much lower.
Hmm. And to get into like a specific retailer, from the way that I understand it, like a Whole Foods or a Kroger or an Albertson, they'll say you have to get into that distributorship. Like that's the only way into our store is through that distributorship. So, a couple of years ago, I would have thought like I have a great product. I call Kroger and I go, hey, like how many pallets do you want? But that's not really the case. It's like they'll say, okay, well, if you can get into UNFI or Kihi, then from there we'll buy. And then there's this like really weird financial relationship that you probably know far more about than I do, where like now Kroger is paying UNFI and then UNFI is paying you. And then they're adding all these chargebacks and, damage allotments and things like that. And also, the one that really has kind of shocked me is grocery seems like a big takesy backsy world. Like, hey, we're going to buy, whatever, 50 pallets. We have a brand, a peanut butter brand, and they got national placement through Kroger and Albertson. And they're like, we're really nervous. And I'm like, well, why? That sounds like a good thing. And they're like, because if we don't sell through all this product, then we have to buy it back. So they have to preemptively manufacture all of this product. I don't know how many, Krogers and Albertsons there are in the United States. Let's call it 1,000. And then every store needs, I don't, it's peanut butter. They probably need like 72 units, right? So we're talking, 7,000 plus units of this peanut butter. And then if the grocery store can only sell 2 or 3,000 because customers just didn't want this peanut butter, it's like, hey, we're shipping you back these 5,000 units and we're not paying for this. And I've seen that like wreck companies. So that's one that anybody in the grocery world really needs to understand, is like, what is the rule here about taking back the product?
100%. That makes me so nervous. And that's the reason why kind of these grocery outlets and TJ Maxx and Home Goods sell, short date codes, right? Because you just went from something that can last 12 months on the shelf to now you took it back and it's only has 6 months left,
Right. Or
which
less,
is
which is the really crazy one where it's like, yeah, this has 30 days left. What do we do with it, Alex? And I'm like, well, we can't even sell that on Amazon. So I don't know what you're going to do.
yeah, food bank maybe. I don't, yeah, I don't. I'm so happy that I have decided and stayed very true to just managing Costco. I think that a lot of brokers fall into that trap of like, oh, well, I have this really great brand that I'm working on for Costco. Maybe I should try and get their Albertsons business or their,
Mm.
so that the brand then has one broker system for multiple retailers. But we'll never, I want to be an expert in this one particular lane. So I'm going to stay true to that.
Yeah, and you've kind of told me that the relationship with Costco is a lot more one-to-one, where you don't have that kind of weird distributor partner in between, correct?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing because they're buying at such scale, and the volumes there. But like you were saying about the buybacks and things like that, there are really nuances about doing business with Costco. So it is good to either get a broker partner or get really, really smart on it, which kind of is why. Can we talk retail row for a
Yeah,
second?
absolutely.
Okay. So we started, my friend Ashley and I started a community for consumer based products to learn about retailers. So it's an educational platform, it's a community for brands that maybe can't afford a broker. They don't necessarily want a broker, but they need to get smart on these retailers. And they need to find trusted partners. They need to have a packaging supplier. They need, flex pack. They need marketing, SEO, all this stuff. So we're going to bring these product-based companies to our community called Retail Row, where then they can learn about all the retailers. So I'll, manage Costco. It'll be a little sub-community. There'll be group chats. There'll be, hey, new warehouse opening. Hey, don't forget new packaging standards just got released. So it'll be really great. Like, how do you keep your ear to the ground about what's going on with Costco without paying a big retainer to your brokerage house? And then we'll open up Amazon, which would be amazing. And then Walmart, Whole Foods, and Target. So that by the end of August, we'll have 5 retail communities within our platform where anyone can come and learn about these retailers.
Mm. Yep, we're super excited to be a part of it in any way that we can. And I think that's going to be a great resource for you and for the rest of the people who are involved to just because the nuances of these channels are very specific. Like Amazon and Costco have almost no similarities, right? So it's like, how do we deal with those two things at once?
Yeah, and as a brand, as a founder, right? Like I get to say I'm only going to do Costco, but as a founder, you can't.
Hmm.
You have to do all of them, and then you have to determine at what time do I trigger this new retailer?
Hmm.
At what time do I look at Sam's Club and Costco? That could be a real dilemma, right? Is how do you sell to both club channels and create value that isn't disruptive to either one of those retailers?
Mm. Yeah. So maybe talk to me about if I was going to be starting a CPG brand right now, knowing what you know, not just about Costco, but about the CPG world in general. What are the things that you think someone out there really needs to be mindful of? Like, what are the pitfalls and what are the things that you've really seen help brands be successful?
That's like such a good question. Such a good question. Passion. I think the founders have to really understand the passion and the dedication. I see a lot of side hustles, right? I even get pulled into side hustles of like, oh yeah, I'm going to start this little golf brand or I'm going to start this thing. You got to be 100% all in, um, because it's never going to succeed if it's a side hustle.
Hmm. Yep. Well, like a all glass food storage container, right? Yeah.
That one, yeah, that one,
That one you
yeah,
like. That one you'll make the exception for.
that one I think could, yeah, maybe keep that as a side
Which I
hustle.
get that, like, because if you have a job, like, let's say, again, you're working at Starbucks and you're like, this is a pretty good job, making a pretty good income, but I've really always wanted to do something entrepreneurial. It is tough to make that leap and quit and move on. But at the same time, like, I don't necessarily always know if like venture funding is the right decision for these brands. We could probably talk about that, like how that totally and completely changes the equation. So it's like, how do I fund this thing, get serious and be invested in it, keep my equity and keep my own ability to live this thing out, but like be invested. And that is a tough calculation for brands, but we're totally with you. When someone goes like, yeah, I got a day job, like it's always a good giveaway when they're like, can you do the call at 7 o'clock? You're like, 7 o'clock? No, I'm not doing a call at 7 o'clock with you. Like, why? It's like, oh, I got, I'm busy through the day. It's like, oh, you got a job. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I run into that quite a bit too. It's like the ones that I really believe in are the ones that the founder is just, it's going to happen. I just know it will because that founder is just so passionate. I think curiosity too. The people that talk less and ask more questions are usually the ones that have a thirst to learn and to learn from other people in their space. Um, I also saw a post on LinkedIn the other day that I thought was super interesting. It was about the fact that knowledge is going to be irrelevant, right? Because knowledge, I can put anything into ChatGPT, I can get any answer, I can get any statistic, any fact. It's really going to be like grit and determination that sets people apart now.
One thing I just heard that kind of rings true right now, and based on what you're saying, is from an entrepreneur I really like, Alex Hormozy. And he said, actually, the superpower is deciding what knowledge and information that you take in and take seriously, right? Because, like, some information that people give you is good information. Some information, just like you were talking about when you were, young and upcoming and in the business, you're like, I don't listen to everyone's information. So it's like parsing out like what is the correct information for me to take in versus what is not the correct information for me to take in. Like that's really the superpower. Because someone like might say like, well, you should just invest in like really safe stuff in the S&P 500, and you're like, you know what? I got a hunch that this company Nvidia is like gonna like do it, right? So it's like, well, the information that I decided to take in was information that confirmed my Nvidia hypothesis versus the information you were telling me, which was like play it safe. So really, the way to win is by being able to decide what information you shouldn't take in. Not necessarily like you said, just like all the information is out there. Well, yeah, all the information is out there, but it's like when do I apply it to me versus other situations? I thought that was really insightful.
Very, yeah, that whole critical thinking piece. I have an 18-year-old, so I see it through his eyes now. Is that, well, Mama, why do I have to remember that. Why do I have to? And I'm like having a hard time trying to articulate my and I'm like, well, actually, why? You're right, but you do have to figure out it, how you feel about it. What is your opinion on that information or that article you read? Or, do you believe it? Do you want to find out more about it? So even our language at home is shifting a little bit around challenging that information a little bit.
Mm. What about like products out in the market right now that you see as like kind of interesting in this kind of CPG grocery world? Are there things that are like trends that are exciting to you that are happening versus things you're like, geez, I just don't know if that's going to last?
I think the protein thing, I'm like so over it. Like, does everything have to have protein? I'm so over that. I am really into no seed oils.
Yep.
I think that is going to eclipse any sort of and I think fiber and no seed oils. Those are going to be the two claims. Maybe even lower sodium.
Mm.
I represent a brand called Yo Mamas, and they are no sugar added, low sodium, and they are so hot. And all the data points to this low sodium eclipsing this kind of even no sugar and the keto and all that stuff.
Interesting. That's not something really I had heard. It's funny because,
Yeah,
right, like we have hydration companies that we do business with, and they're like more sodium, like 1,000 milligrams. So
yeah. And then I don't know much about this space. You probably know more, but like, is all sodium created equal? Like, is my Baja Gold sea salt that I put in my water in the morning the same as like ultra processed something with,
I think
all that?
it's like
No, I don't
everything. You
know.
can drill down and go crazy. Like, do I want the Celtic salt or do I want the pink Himalayan salt or do I want the kosher salt or is Morton's all right? And well, this is pink Himalayan salt, but where is it actually from? Is it actually from the Himalayas? Like, and
The Dead Sea.
right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's nuance to everything. And I'm with you. Like, let's not like re-justify the healthiness of this product. Like, let's not just add it as a claim. Like, if it legitimately does fit into someone's diet, great. But yeah, it's annoying when people are like trying to spin. Here's one of my favorite things that CPG companies do is they'll have two products. One will whatever have like sucralose in it, and then the other one they'll advertise no sucralose, and you're like, you can't advertise that if you have a product with that. Like, it either is part of your brand identity or it's not. Like, I get it. Well, this is for a different consumer. It's like, come on. So my
I
big thing right now in CPG is just like things that are different. Like when you and me go to these expos, I just hate seeing like it's like another. I don't want to rag on any particular thing. Another tortilla chip. It's like another X and Y and Z, and I'm like, do we really need another one of these? I like things that are unique, and that's why when we connect with brands, I'm like, I have not seen a product like this before. I'm interested.
Yeah, yeah. I think something really interesting that I've been listening to quite a bit is around the GLP-1s and how many calories are actually being taken out of the market that aren't coming back. So the share, a lot of my clients always talk about like share of stomach. Well, the whole stomach is getting smaller.
Share of stomach, huh? I've never heard that.
Yeah, I know. I always think, and I'm not a data person at all. In fact, I love that my clients have these amazing data people who can tell me the story because I don't really, give me the key takeaways. Another key takeaway was about instead of saying the lack of something, you're saying it has this. So you're
Mm.
presenting benefits versus what it doesn't have, right? Like no sugar, no saturated fat or whatever. Instead of saying, high omega 3s from avocado oil or I don't know whatever it ends up being.
Mhm.
So you're kind of shifting and making members feel more positive about their choice.
Instead of shaming them, like other
Yep.
foods you eat have X and Y and Z, right?
Yeah, which I thought was interesting.
Is Costco thinking about this GLP-1 thing? Is that things that have came up in those meetings? I'm sure all the grocery stores are thinking about it at some capacity, but is it actually getting brought up in meetings that you're having?
Yeah, buyers are definitely talking about it.
Mm.
Um, buyers are definitely talking about it, and switching and making sure, their portfolio is on non-foods as well, which I think Costco does a really great job, with that product mix and being able to flex SKUs like away from foods into non-foods. And, when all that tariff activity was happening, they then opened up a lot of SKU space for more foods and more manufactured in the USA products.
Mm.
So they can flex and be nimble in that way, which I think is smart. They have their ear to the ground on trends and they see it in their, member data pretty quickly and can react. But you think about a Halloween set. Okay, Halloween's been ordered since 3 months ago. It's on the water. It's costumes. I mean, think about all of that, and it's going to be affected by tariffs. Like they got to fill that space
Mm.
with something.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah, we always do that with our seasonal items. It's just really tough to plan like a Christmas holiday item, like because you have to buy it, 6 or 8 months in advance, because then the
Yeah.
manufacturer needs to ramp up. One of our big manufacturing clients, they produce for like the big chocolate companies, Snickers and Hershey's, and they're producing those all year round, like Christmas trees and pumpkins. They're making those all year. It's nuts.
Well, that's what I was telling you about my job, selling to Starbucks. It was like always freaking Christmas. I
Yeah.
was like, if I see red and green one more time, I'm gonna barf. Like I just can't do it. It gets so old. And you're supposed to always, what's new this season and keeping it fresh and cool. And it's like, oh my God, I can't.
Mm. Carlene, talk to me a little bit about your business. When you were starting this, I know you said you had some partners that weren't aligned with kind of your idea of where this was going to go. How do you kind of think about your business now? And now that you've had success with getting, brands into Costco and doing the brokerage, like what has been instrumental for you to have success, both team and leadership and methodologies and ideas around it?
Yeah, I think I'm at a really critical point right now because I have 5 years under my belt. We have really amazing clients, great brands. Do I want to grow? And if I want to grow, then what kind of sales folks do I need to bolt on to the system? I also love doing the work.
Yeah.
I love being in front of the buyers, helping brands. I love that part. So I can't see myself ever moving away from actually managing clients and into that true like CEO role,
Mm.
that's more of a leadership. So I'm kind of battling with that right now. Like, when is the right time? What do I really want this to be? I'm turning down these amazing brands that I absolutely want to help. Um, so I'm kind of in a place where I probably need to do a retreat or something and think about it.
Yeah, what would be your thoughts on hiring like a CEO to come in, like I don't want to say above you, but essentially a CEO is above everybody at the company, right? Because I do see this a lot with founders. In our business, other businesses, they have a certain thing that they like to do, and because of that, that gets focused on a lot at the company, which can be totally good in the early going, right? Like if you love client acquisition, that's what you need when your company starts. But now it sounds like you're at a place where it's like client acquisition isn't really the problem. Like maybe we need management and executives and we need like a CFO and all of these other processes in place to like scale this business. But then the founder still likes to do client acquisition. So they're like, oh, I'm going, on to an expo this weekend. You're like, that's not what we need. And that's tough. That's tough for a founder to kind of admit, but also it's very tough for a founder to be like, yeah, we do need to hire someone who's like a professional CEO to come and manage me. Founders go, I'm not about that.
I think you're onto something though, because I just don't know that I have the skill to do that part, and nor do I want to learn that. I'm not curious about that. I'm not enthusiastic and not passionate about it. I love my team. I love building, helping people get where they want to be. I love supporting women, obviously, and all women at my company. But yeah, so I'm trying to sort that out right now, because I do think we're at a really great time where we have proven track record. We've got amazing processes. I just hired Sue Watkins, who's from Club Demo Services. So that's the brand, that's the company within Costco that does all the demos. So we've
Mm.
got this really great, amazing knowledge from Sue. Just hired a new national account manager, Robin, who came from deep brokerage roots. So she's like classically trained in what brokers really do, because we're just kind of making it up as we go along now, right? Like client needs this, let's figure out how to make it happen, and we're going to do it. So she's going to put a little rigor around our internal client management processes, and then we've got amazing salespeople So yeah, it's just going to be like, when is the right time to hire and what will that role be?
Mm. And also, I think one of the things I think you're sort of talking about and dancing around is like, what do I want or need out of this company? Right. And, most founders, like, they don't start with the end in mind. This is like, Simon Sinek, like, start with why. Like, well, why do I want to be successful? Well, it's like, because I want to spend all my time on a beach, in Tahiti. It's like, could I do that right now? Like, do I have enough funding and money and resources to do that right now? So then I think sometimes we get caught in this game of like, gotta grow, gotta grow, gotta grow, gotta add more people, gotta add more brands, and you like go, well, why? Like, is that fundamentally what you want out of life? Is like a bigger business, or do you have what you need? And I think, to me, it sounds like that's kind of what you're saying is like, well, does this business need to keep growing, or are we pleased with about the size that it is?
Yeah, can I hire you for my business coach, because I got to talk this
We'll
through.
do
I
it.
got
We'll
to
do a
work it
trade.
out.
You do the brokerage for the all
Yeah.
glass food service container, and then yeah, no. And look, we've dealt with that too, right? So like we were a 5-person company, and then a 12-person company, and then a 25-person company, and now we're close to 50. And we didn't really ever slow down and go like, well, is this enough? And one of the things that you realize, Carlene, I don't know how many people are on your team, but like I just heard recently, like 12 is sort of like the magic number that you have like one team of 12 people. Once you get to 13 or 14, now you really need two teams. So now you have like an interdepartmental dependency. And we see this a lot with some of our brands that are really big. We will email Dave, and then Dave's like, "What? Becky said that to you? Let me go connect with Becky." And you're like, they don't know what's going on over there. And it's because they have these like multiple teams that are no longer like one single connected team. So like when you're at like 12 or so, you're like a family and everybody's involved in everything. And it's like, I don't need to go explain to you what's happening in the finance department just because like you're there and you hear it all or see it all. So that's been tough for us because we've kind of just blasted past these like numerical milestones. And now we're like, well, how do we like organize these teams? Like, what are the right structures and how many people need to be in one department versus another? And that's been challenging and stuff that we're still all working on as we get bigger and bigger.
Well, also when you see those big monthly payrolls that go out, you're like, we do not need people overlapping and doing the same thing. Maybe this person doesn't need to be at that meeting or know that thing about that particular client, or, like, that gets
Yeah,
huge.
and then people get frustrated because they're like, "Well, I'm not involved in this. Why am I not involved? You didn't involve me." And sometimes it's like accidental, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's like a mixture of both of those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
and what you find when you have 50 people is like it's just an automatic kind of thing that, like you talked about with your government job, like there's an amount of like this person's not super busy, and then there's someone who's like crazy busy, and it's like I can't take on a single another thing just because you got so many people that it's like the work is not distributed evenly and the
Mhm.
knowledge is not distributed evenly. It'd be perfect if it was, but we've had to scale up quickly to get to where we are. So yeah, there's a lot of things we still got to work on, but it's been fun. Uh, but as you're growing your team, there's a lot of things to kind of think about. Is like who does what, how do they fit in, what's the hierarchy, what's the structure, and to your point, like do you want to be an executive? Like if you love like going out and selling and interfacing with the client, like should you change your role to be like president and CEO of this company? Because like then you're going to be looking at spreadsheets and data and having like managerial conversations, and the
Gross.
calculus changes.
Gross. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's interesting too. I'm learning a lot as we bring on new people. Obviously finding the right person is key, but I always think I'm communicating, right? Like, but it never is enough, And there's always so many different. It's text message, it's email. We've got our Google chats. But it's like I still want people to feel like they're in the know, and and they're included and they're valued. That's really hard,
Well,
because I sometimes just need to type away at my computer all day and manage clients.
Well, that becomes another really difficult thing when you have a big team. You don't ever get to like sit down and work for like 6 hours. And that's something that I've started to see over the last like year and a half. I read this book that you'd probably really love by Dan Martell. It's called Buy Back Your Time, and so good. And I was obsessed with it for like 20 episodes on the podcast. Everyone listening was probably like, dude, shut up about buy back your time. Um, but basically, the big thing is he wants you to have these long blocks that you can actually work. And that's just like really tough to get to if you're not like segmenting your day and having times where it's like, hey, you're not going to message me from like 9 a.m. to like noon. Or like you message me, but the understanding is that I'm not going to respond. So I can like sit down and actually do the fundamental work. Because what he kind of described and found is a lot of founders, they're not really actually doing any work. They're just like buzzing into certain situations and buzzing out. And what got them to that place where they are was the founders sitting down and doing a lot of like hard effort and work and getting things done, not just like check-ins and check-outs.
Yeah, I mean, I found that I carve out my Sunday morning. So my Sunday mornings are to set my week up for success. So I go through my OneNote, I go through every client, I go through every spreadsheet, and so that I then am feeling really confident going into the week. And that's when I do my real work, you know. But that, I mean, that stinks to not have Sunday morning with my family, but it's the only way I can keep my head above water during the weeks.
Also, when these dang podcasters steal your Sunday morning away from you,
No,
right?
no, I love it. I'm used to it. So this is good, right? This is my like time,
Mhm.
which is, is good. But that, I mean, making sure that you carve out, and I'm in a service industry, right? Like acts of service, I'm service. My clients can get me anytime. I was texting with Crocodile Cloth founder yesterday on pallet positions and all this stuff. They have to have access to me. And that's, that's what separates us from other brokers, is that we are so engaged, and service is so important to us. But how do you have a little bit of boundary?
Yeah. That's something that I think you do so well at. So maybe talk me through your thought process on that. It's like, how do you like? Because what I can tell is you really let your personality out. You're not like nervous to let your personality out in your business interactions. And I think that there's a tough balance there. And maybe it's more so for women that like you need to be like super professional. You're not like typing a bunch of exclamation points, right? That's one of the things that they statistically say women will do more exclamation points. Um,
That's me.
yeah, well, it's okay if it works and it fits into your personality, but you seem to really let your personality out, and I think that that helps you a lot in your business. But how do you maybe think about that for either a woman or just anyone in business to like blend that like service, personality, relationship building, and professionalism?
So hard. And I don't think that I really realized how much of my personality I was suppressing when I was working for other people.
Mm,
And now that I have my business and my team and my clients, and the more I am authentic and the more that I am myself, the more I'm rewarded with, you know, and I use the word rewarded, but the more it feeds back to me and says that, this is good. People like this. I get so excited. I am so excitable. And I think I used to kind of try and tamper that down a little bit more. And I mean, it's just fun. And letting that be fun and okay. I'm here for it now. I'm age 50. I have my business. I've proven myself. I don't have to kind of censor that part of me,
mm.
which makes working fun, right?
Did you feel like you had to do that more so as a woman in a male-dominated workforce, or not necessarily?
I did feel like, and I didn't quite realize it when I was in it, right? But now that I have fully kind of embraced that part, I think looking back, I did.
Mm. What kind of advice would you give to like young women in the workforce about balancing that professionalism and personality and um, maybe a male-dominated workplace? A lot of businesses still do have a lot of men in management and executive leadership. How do you kind of think about that? Like if you're going to coach our friend Julia up, like what kind of things would you be telling her?
I think you have to be authentic. Anyone who isn't, it's just so obvious. I think it, being professional, right? You're dressed. It's kind of fly. Dressed appropriately. You're knowledgeable. You're prepared. You're on time. You're a good listener. Like all of those things, I think are good. You have to have a level of professionalism, but that doesn't mean that you can't be your true self in terms of, if you're struggling or if you have questions, you don't understand something, asking questions, asking for clarification, or being super excited. all of those things with whatever you're feeling in that moment. I mean, that can get a little wild if you start crying and like getting crazy. You don't want to come off as bipolar, but being authentic to yourself.
Mm. And yeah, I think professionalism and your ability to actually execute, right? Like, I don't care who you are or what you are if you can execute for my company. Like if it is clear that you are a professional in your level of execution, then all the other stuff is like very secondarily important to me. Like what you wear, what your hair looks like, or even like the words you say on calls. Like that's unimportant if it's like you're on top of the things that I'm asking you to be on top of.
Interesting.
For me,
Yeah.
I don't enter a lot of meetings, like physically any longer. I know you are walking into Costco and it's like, okay, I need to be, put together here. But hey, look, if Carlene's delivering, it's like, that's cool. I'm not worried about anything else. And I think that would be my advice for young people, whether it be male or female, is like professionalism is being on top of your stuff. It's not what you wear and like, yes, like grammatically in emails, I want you to like use your periods and stuff. But like if you're kicking butt, like in on top of and attentive to the things that you're doing, that's professionalism to me. Like wearing a suit is not professional if you like can't respond or pick up, the phone or like, do your job. I don't care how professional you are. You're not doing a good job. So the professionalism goes out the window there.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole thing about being prepared for meetings, being on time, managing other people's time. I think also for young folks, they don't understand how much project management is involved in anything we do. The details, the tracking, the follow up, the communication. I mean, everything can be solved if you are an amazing project manager.
Yeah, most
It's
definitely.
like, I swear, it's like 90% of every job,
Mm-hmm. It
which is what you're saying, right? Executing,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Well, Carlene, we're touching on an hour here. Do you have anything else that we didn't cover? Things that you'd want to tell people about business and your experiences, or the Costco business model? I know you're super passionate about them and what they do because you've had success with them and they've been great for your clients.
Gosh, we covered a lot. Um, yeah, if anybody wants to connect with me, I'm definitely on LinkedIn, definitely available in Retail Row if you want to set up some time with me and learn a little bit more about Costco. I do a Costco 101 that's super duper specific once a month. And anybody learning or thinking about Costco and their strategy, I'd welcome them to join in on that and learn the foundations.
Awesome. And Rebel Solutions Group, they can just ping you through there if they need some help with their Costco business.
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Carlene, thank you so much for spending your Sunday morning with me.
Bye, guys.
Appreciate you.